Hello everybody, how are we doing today? I thought we should mark an occasion that for the most part no one's really, well, I already have some, no one's really aware of or pays any attention to at all. Tomorrow, or realistically today, when some of you will see it, July the 16th, 1945, 78 years ago, the first nuclear explosion occurred in New Mexico, USA, a couple hundred miles south of Los Alamos. And that detonation, the code name was called Trinity. On that day, we created a 23rd century technology in the 20th century, and humankind will forever be held hostage by itself. 78 years ago, the atomic age was born, July the 16th, 1945. Now, atomic bombs use either uranium or plutonium. Now, Trinity, for some reason, was plutonium, and I don't know exactly why. I'm not a theoretical physicist, a chemist, a scientist. I'm not anything really other than a guy that seeks knowledge, and I think I've got the gist of it. So forgive me if we're off a little bit, but we'll see how it goes. Now, obviously, both uranium and plutonium are radioactive elements. Now, uranium and plutonium, this is a periodic table of the elements, and as you can see, uranium, which is right here, uranium is 92 is its atomic number, and its atomic weight is 238. And then just a couple over is going to be plutonium. Plutonium is atomic number 94, and its atomic weight is 244. Now, the little that I know is that, again, plutonium is way more radioactive than uranium, and therefore probably unstable and more destructive, I suppose. Now, uranium's got some good uses. We use it to fight cancer. It can be used to generate enormous amounts of power. And then, of course, after 1945, we started using it to make bombs, to annihilate each other. Now, of course, the first thing you have to do, you got to mine uranium. Assuming you can mine it, find it, mine it, then you have to enrich it. Why do we have to enrich it? Isotopes. If you vary the neutrons in an element, you get sort of a different version of that same element, if that makes sense. So that atomic number, like uranium 238, when you vary those neutrons, you can get uranium 238 becomes uranium 235, and apparently that's, from a bomb standpoint, that's what you want. I don't know why. Assuming you can get that, then you got to get a centrifuge, one of those spinny things, and that's going to separate those isotopes, and eventually you'll end up with kind of a uranium, I don't know what you want to call it a cookie. Here, take a look at this picture. Take a look. So you end up with one of those things, right? So the next thing you got to do is basically, I guess, fission. And what fission is it turns a little bit of mass into a lot of energy. Now, fission was discovered by this cat named Otto Hahn, a German dude, shocker. He actually won the Nobel Prize for Peace in 1944 for the creation of fission and some of his other discoveries, which is a little ironic because the Nobel Prize is named after Alfred Nobel, who won it for basically the invention of dynamite. So this cat won the Nobel Prize for fission. So you take big atomic nuclei and you kind of bang them around or bang them together, and it makes small atomic nuclei, and this gives you a pant load of energy from banging those together. That's really how overly simplified, but that's how nuclear reactors work and bombs. Now, fusion, you've got fission and fusion. Now, fusion is basically the reverse of that. It's when the nuclei combine, similar to how the sun works, right? So in a fission bomb, the goal is to get the uranium to release neutrons, and you achieve this with explosives. Now, these neutrons will hit the unstable neutrons left over in the uranium, and you get, well, ba-boom. Now, that's a gross oversimplification. It's certainly not that easy because not everybody has the bomb, but that's basically the gist of it. So now in a fusion bomb, if you want to do a double whammy, they're twice as badass, I guess, from a bomb standpoint, because it starts with fission, what we just talked about, and then at some point it changes into fusion, and I don't know how that works. And basically, at that point, you're creating like a star here on Earth. So that's basically what they were working on in New Mexico. The movie's coming out, Oppenheimer, here in a couple of weeks, or maybe it's the end of next week. The Manhattan Project, that's what it was all based on, and Trinity was the end result of all that research and work. So, about a month after Trinity, a B-29 bomber known as the Enola Gay dropped a bomb named Little Boy on Hiroshima, Japan. Now that bomb vaporized about 70,000 people. One minute they were there, the next minute, like a fart in the wind, they're just gone. The mushroom cloud is said to have been 60,000 feet in the air, and the after effects, tens of thousands of people would die from radiation poisoning, all kinds of mutation, terrible for decades. From what I understand, Truman was as giddy as a schoolboy. He was really, really excited about the vaporizing 70,000 people. So much so that 3 days later, Fat Man was dropped on Nagasaki, and it was a rinse and repeat. About 60,000 people were vaporized. The Empire of Japan formally surrendered, I think, in the Tokyo Bay on the USS Missouri about 3 weeks later. And the entire world agreed at that moment that this should never happen again. On purpose, by accident, no way should it ever happen. Now, unfortunately, on August the 29th, 1949, the USSR successfully detonated their first nuclear weapon, and the Cold War began. August the 29th, 1949. Actually, in a couple years before that, scientists started that doomsday clock that we hear so much about, and that's the clock of how close we come to nuclear annihilation. And a lot of people subscribe to the mutually assured destruction will prevent anything bad from happening, and I suppose there's a little logic to that, because I launch my bombs, but before my bombs get to you, you know it, and you launch your bombs, so there's no real victor. The movie War Games is about that. It's repeated time and time again. It also assumes that all people are rational, which we know is not true. Especially with the instability in Russia right now, what's going on in Ukraine. We'll get to it in a second. Those cats got a lot of bombs, and as that country continues to potentially collapse, those bombs can end up places that we don't want. But anyway, 1945, World War II ends. 1949, Russia detonates its first bomb. We all agree that mutually assured destruction will keep mankind safe. Well, in 1961, 4 megaton Mark 39 bombs fall out of an airplane over North Carolina. Some sort of failure, the pilots have to eject. And the only thing that kept those things from going off was I think one safety feature that I'm sure if I dug into it, a bunch of people didn't want to put in because they cost a couple of bucks. So we came pretty close to blowing ourselves up, or at least North Carolina, which, it's North Carolina, so, but still a problem. 1962, a Soviet sub loses contact with its, loses contact with its commanders, and the captain of the boat thinks that World War III may be starting and starts to plan to launch an attack until he's talked out of it by his second in command, etc., etc., etc. You all recall, too, in 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis, which is probably the closest we've ever come to the brink of true nuclear catastrophe, except for Japan. Then in 1967, a solar flare knocks out some NORAD satellites, and kind of the reverse of the Soviet sub, because I know what you're thinking, wow, the Ruskies, dummies, they didn't even think about it. Well, in 1967, reverse that, the solar flare knocks out some NORAD satellites, and one of the US commanders of a fleet almost launches nuclear weapons against the USSR. And again, his second in command managed to talk him down from the ledge. And I'm assuming the NORAD system comes back online and everything's fine. This is a fun one that not a lot of people think about. 1968, North Korea shoots down one of our surveillance planes, spy satellite plane things, whatever they're called. And Richard Nixon is so incensed, he actually orders a nuclear strike. He ordered a nuclear strike against North Korea in 1968. And it was Henry Kissinger who stopped it. I don't know how, but probably one of the few reasons we're even alive today is thanks to Mr. Kissinger. If Nixon had his way, he'd have sent those bombs out. Rumor has it he was drinking, I don't know. Anyway, so the Cold War, 1949 to 1991, December the 26th, 1991, the Cold War ends with the collapse of the USSR, and you think the doomsday clock or the mutually assured destruction, we'd have less to worry about. But today, 9 countries have nuclear weapons. We've got Russia, that's just under 6,000. They have 5,977 weapons. The USA's got about 5,428. China has 350. France has 290. The UK has 225. Pakistan has 165. India has 160. Israel has 90. And North Korea has 20. That's 12,705 nuclear weapons that we're aware of. He said only 9 countries currently have that capability, but we could destroy the planet, 10, 12 times over. Kind of interesting. Anyway, one other side note, I actually have the legal limit. I don't know if you can see it. This is depleted uranium. It's 7 kilograms, which is the amount I'm allowed to own without going to prison, from what I understand, or being in a lot of trouble. And depleted uranium is actually used in bulletproof vests, illegally, I think, on bullets, because you do not want to ingest this. It would end poorly for you. And I don't even think you want to touch it. This isn't some sort of an oil. No, I don't know why I have it. I'm a kooky guy. But I have close to the maximum amount of depleted uranium an individual citizen can own, at least in this country. But I don't know. I thought all of that was kind of interesting. And the guys that limit this, that's the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC. They're the ones that decide and keep track of that stuff. And that's why we have to make sure that there's always physicists that are in charge of the Department of Energy, not hoopleheads. We have to have really, really smart people because we got to keep track of the nukes. But I got a kick out of it. I just wanted to acknowledge July the 16th, 1945, 78 years ago. With Oppenheimer coming out, I think there'll be a lot, the movie, I think there'll be a lot of interest. I'm currently actually reading on my, I don't know what this is called, my Kindle, American Prometheus, which is the Oppenheimer book that the movie is based on. And it's very good so far. I'm not too far into it. I don't know, 100-something pages. He's an interesting cat. But anyway, I hope you got a kick out of this. Do your own, dig a little deeper. This is very, very interesting. I wish I'd have paid more attention in school in chemistry. I didn't. It fascinates me today. I just don't have the energy to get too far into the weeds. But Again, 78 years, and then in just a couple of 28, 29 days will be the anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So again, in this world, when you could be anything you want, you be kind, you be humble, and you be forgiving. And you know what? Crack a book. The real treasure is knowledge. Read something. Try to read every day. Learn something new. You don't have to be a master of it. Just have like this. Just have a little idea. Anyway, have a great day. We'll talk to you later. Bye.